East Hampton Town Board, we are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 1st work session of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Councilmember Burke Gonzalez.
Present.
Councilmember Lees.
Present.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Supervisor Van Scoy.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today's work session will begin with a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. That'll be followed by a presentation of bids by Jeannie Carosa. We'll have the East Hampton Housing Authority project status update from Katie Casey, a water quality municipal septics for 2023 update. That's with Councilmember Lees and Melissa Winslow. NYSERDA site feasibility assessment with Kim Shaw, followed by liaison reports. And we do have a few resolutions to approve today. I have 2 people signed up, and then I'll take by show of hands anyone else who wishes to address the board in public comment, and we'll go to the phones as well. First up is Brad Brooks. Morning, Brad.
Good morning. I think as you're all aware, I sent you an email last week about the deer population and tick issue, which I think I've sent a handful of emails to all of you over the years. I'm disappointed that I've never gotten a response from anybody about this. I don't know what the plans are, if there are any plans. Can anyone look up? Thank you.
Taking notes, Brad.
Taking notes. Okay, great. So my question is, you realize we have a serious tick disease problem here, right?
Yeah.
CDC just came out last week saying alpha-gal, which is a serious problem in this town for years, has been underreported. Do you have any plans whatsoever? In the paper a couple of weeks ago, Peter, you said you realize there's this deer problem, but you're studying the thing, I think, for 9 years now. Mm-hmm. And my main question is, are there any plans to do anything, considering that we have a real problem here with tick disease?
Regarding ticks?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a county health department and we have a vector control department. For the town to, I think, try and solve a tick problem that is much bigger than one town, it's pretty difficult. I don't think anybody really has a solution yet. Well, this is being studied. Excuse me, if you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it to the best of my ability. The CDCH is studying this. The State Department of Health is studying this. There's just been an effort that the governor's undertaken with funding research to deal with the problem. It's interesting to me that indigenous peoples all over New England, all over the country, really had a method of actually doing controlled burns every year. And back in the days when there were controlled burns on people's properties, they didn't burn their autumn leaves, there was less of a tick problem. I know we have a large deer population, and some suggest that that's really the root of the problem. It's a part of the problem, but there are clearly other animals, rabbits, squirrels, white-footed mice, birds, that all are hosts for ticks.
Here's my follow-up, which was in my email. It was email last year. It was in the paper a year ago in the East Hampton Star. There are these machines called 4-posters that other towns. I realize the DC's made it difficult to use these, but they say they're $5,000 or $6,000. I pointed out the Girl Scout camp would be a great place multiple times now to test this out. The response I've gotten from the town is it's too expensive. Are you aware of that? I've written this to you.
Well, I know it's expensive, but there have also been concerns about it poisoning groundwater.
They've studied this for 10 years. Now, in the article in the East Hampton Star last year, North Sea wants these. They're going door to door, knocking to get them to sign off, because DC's made it very difficult. All you'd have to do is get the Girl Scout camp to sign off on it, one signature, which I think they would like to do, since it's a huge problem for, I'm assuming, the campers also. Is there some reason why the town can't spend $6,000 on doing a test on this? You have a budget of $90 million. Can you explain that to me? I just came back from Southampton Hospital last week, and my wife, we're waiting for the results. She probably has alpha-gal. So yeah, I'm not too happy that I've been complaining about this for 5 years. Do you, I mean, is there any plan whatsoever to tell me, well, there's state studies, there might be some money? You have a $90 million budget. You can't spend 100 grand on these 4-poster machines like other towns want to. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Brad. Tom McMorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
My name is Tom McMorrow, and I am the tenant at 813 Montauk Highway in Montauk, New York. And I've been there with my wife. We've been tenants for 10 years. The property is owned by the Martell family. A little bit of history. I've given you 14 pages, which I'm going to breeze through. Page 1 is an aerial view from 2018. You can see that in this aerial view, the property that I'm on, well, first let me go back, the history of the property. 813 Montauk Highway is a gas station on the ground floor and then an apartment upstairs. It was built in 1946. It was the first building on its block. From the beginning, from 1946 until July 15th of this year, whoever lived in that apartment accessed the property from the alleyway, the town-owned alleyway that runs east-west between South Euclid and Montauk Highway. On July 15, well, first let's now go back to this aerial. You see in this aerial, which is from 2018, it's in town records, you see cars parked on the back of 813 Montauk Highway. They're circled in pink. There's a car parked in the alley, and then there's a boat sitting there that belongs to the Martell family. If you go to the next 2 pages, you'll see east-west views of that alleyway from about 2000. The Suffolk County Water Department laid a water main in that alleyway, and you see the topography. It's smooth, it's even. The high point in this block is at South Euclid and South Essex Street. Everything is a downward slope from there down to the highway to the south and to South Edison to the west. Now let's go to pages 4, 5, 6. On July 15th, an asphalt company came in and laid down, well, first you see the fill. There is between 6 to 18 inches of fill behind 94 South Euclid Avenue. On top of that fill, up 6 to 8 inches of asphalt was laid down, was paved by this company. I'll submit the name after I speak. I'll send an email. But if you go then to page 7, you'll see this is what the planning board of the town of East Hampton approved. This is from the survey. Alley, 20 feet wide, unopened. Below it, it says proposed 1.5 inches asphalt pavement, period. There's nothing else in here. That is what is supposed to have been put down instead of 24 inches. The effect of the 24 inches that was laid down means that I cannot access the property anymore. I now have to park a quarter mile of the way. The Martells can't access their properties anymore. That is wrong. That is not what was approved. Now, if you go to the next picture, 8, you'll see that going from 94 on that alleyway to 92, there's a huge dip in the road because the grade of 94 has been raised substantially. I drove over that dip today, and I can tell you it is a big dip. You've got a skate park a quarter mile away, a quarter mile up South Essex. And I asked the kid yesterday, went by me on a scooter, what he thought about that roadway when it's opened up. And he said he just couldn't wait. You are going to have kids flying down that alleyway, flying over that dip. It belongs to the town of East Hampton. If someone gets injured, it's on the town of East Hampton. Now you go to the next page, 9. You'll see a picture of the structure from South Euclid and South Essex. That's the high point of the property. But look what's happening on the property. You can see that sidewalk is going up. It's an upslope. It's clear in the picture. He's created, the owner, a second high point on that block. Go to the next page, you see the result. The sidewalk that he was required to put in by the approval of the East Hampton Town Planning Board, the sidewalk doesn't meet. It's 3 feet raised over 92. And if you go to the next page, you will see the planning board clearly says those sidewalks need to be connected. Go to the next page, you see the alley the way it looks now. You'll notice that there's a cone and yellow tape. The owner of South Euclid has taken upon himself to close the alley off. He's probably doing you all a favor because someone is going to get hurt on that dip. Finally, go to the last 2 pages. You'll see this is shot from 90 South Euclid, undeveloped, belongs to Martell's. At 809 Montauk Highway, also belonging to the Martells, and that's a business of the Martells. You see how tall, even there, that asphalt is, and then you see on the other side a lip. You go to my last page. I shot this yesterday. That's about a 7 or 8 inch rise. If you're walking, and I shot this in the morning, so you can see the how difficult it is to see this black lip on a black asphalt roadway, how dangerous it is. My wife was walking to the post office the other day and she almost tripped on it, and she knows it's there. So this is a town-owned road, and this is going to be on you guys. You know, if someone trips, if someone gets hurt, it's not me. It's not going to be the Martells, and it's not even going to be this guy who did it. It's going to be the town. I mean, I would just say that go back and look at what the planning board actually approved and see what can be done. I believe the town needs to act aggressively on this. You can't just let this sit. As I say, you've got that skate park. You're going to have kids flying down that road. And I just think it's unfair that the access to the Martell properties has been taken away from them after 77 years of using it. So I thank you very much. I know you guys have an executive session after this. Perhaps you could take it up there. I appreciate your time very much.
Tom, we are aware of the situation. We've had an internal meeting with planning staff and enforcement to figure out how this happened in the first place. Obviously, the intention was for there to be a continuous sidewalk. We have an issue with ADA, meaning the Americans with Disabilities Act. The continuity is not there on the sidewalk. There are some great issues. We're aware of those. We appreciate the comments that you submitted prior that I think in conversations maybe with the planning department staff, which facilitated that meeting that we had. So we're trying to work through the solutions. We recognize that there's a problem there. And we're trying to make sure that we don't have this situation where properties develop at different times and there's not a coordination of the grade levels to ensure that the public access is protected. So we're going to have to figure out how to solve this problem. But I agree with you that this is can't be allowed to stand as it is.
I appreciate that very much. And again, I point to the actual survey. I know that there are things lacking in that survey that was approved by the planning board, but it says 1.5 inches pavement. That's literally what it says, 1.5 inches asphalt. There's no mention of fill, no mention of like 8 inches of asphalt.
And I know that's the minimum requirement that we place. I think it was intended to be a minimum requirement, but I understand the issues that the grade has caused. So the town will have to continue working to resolve that.
Thank you, because you know, it's just so unfair after 77 years of a family having access to a property to just have it ripped away by someone who says that he owns the road and he's got the right to do it.
Understood.
I thank you very, very much for your attention.
You're welcome. Appreciate your time. Anyone else in the room wish to address the board, public comment? If not, we'll go to the phones. Jason, do you have any callers on the line?
We have no callers on the line.
Okay. In that case, we can move forward with our public topics. First of all is Jeannie Carrozza, purchasing. And you have some bids for us, Jeannie?
Yes, I do. Have a couple of notices. The first is for the Joint Field Facility Maintenance Service, Metro Environmental Services LLC, the apparent low bidders for that one. Next is pavement markings at the airport. JJ Cunningham, general contractor, is the apparent low bidder. The dollar amount for that is $194,563.20. And then I'll have a couple of notices also for food service and miscellaneous food items, and also for a new refuse collection truck for Parks and Rec. And that's it.
Any questions for Jeannie? Thank you, Jeannie. Have a great day. So that brings us up to our next presentation, which is East Hampton Housing Authority project status update. We have our Executive Director of the Housing Authority, Katie Casey, with us today.
Good
Welcome,
morning.
Katie.
Did you need assistance with the PowerPoint?
I can run it. I
Okay,
think it's not, it's only like 13 slides.
got it.
I don't know if it will if LTV will
What?
automatically.
It automatically shows and shares. Don't worry about it.
So I am Katie Casey from the East Hampton Housing Authority. I wanted to update the town board and the public at large on where we are with a few projects and activities. I know there's a lot of interest in the applications for 3 Mile Harbor. Those are not yet available. We hope to make them available soon. The project is on, it is on schedule. We're looking at maybe December or January of 24, December 23 or January 24. When those applications are available, I will come back and maybe speak publicly to let folks know that they can get those applications and apply. It'll be on local radio stations, LAW, ELJ, EHM, and in the Star, there'll be a notice, also in the press, Southampton Express, and on our website, on the town website, and on our Facebook page. So we're going to put it out there as broadly as possible. We want to keep that application process open as long as possible. People are busy this time of year. Some people are out of town. So we want to make sure that anyone who might benefit from those opportunities has a chance to apply and jump in on that. So I wanted to put that out there first, but my topic is, Mike, are you seeing this?
No.
Not yet. No, you have to hit the share screen button. It's the green arrow on the bottom middle. All right, there we go. Wait, no, we don't.
Did I just undo it?
No, I don't think you did. There.
Wrong screen.
That'll do it.
Here comes Dan.
Oh, and there we go.
Okay.
Here, and I'll make it content only so everyone's in the room sees everything.
Ann and Melissa to the rescue.
Always.
Always. So the East Hampton Housing Authority received, well, first, we have 5 properties, Avalon in Montauk, Acabonic Apartments in East Hampton, Springs Fireplace Apartments also in East Hampton. 531 Montauk Highway is Gansett Meadow in Amagansett. And under construction is 3 Mile Harbor, yet to be named. That won't be the name of it, but that's how we've been referring to it. In 2021, we applied for and were awarded a grant from NYSERDA for affordable solar and storage pre-development and technical assistance. So that's not for hardware or soft costs. It's for feasibility studies, hiring a consultant, seeing what can be done and what the potential is for solar projects at all of the Housing Authority properties. We will be able to deliver a 15% reduction in the cost of energy to our residents, to the communities. Until very recently, there was a bit of a gap in between incentives, money for solar. It was either residential or commercial. And multifamily properties are in between, 1 foot in residential, obviously that's the use, but we're considered a commercial property. So we never qualified for anything. So just in maybe the last 2 years, PSEG, NYSERDA, LIPA, and the Public Service Commission are recognizing this need, and they want residents of those multifamily properties to be the beneficiaries. So we're making progress, which is encouraging. Avalon is the first property. We are ready to go on this. We have asked the town to guarantee a loan. We have sufficient reserves to pay half of the cost of installing. And IPC, which is Innovative Prosperity Capital, they work closely with the Green Bank, funding exactly this type of project. So we're developing a relationship with them. We've received an indicative term sheet. We know what the return on the investment will be. We know that we can support the debt and pay it off in a relatively short period of time. And the potential out at Avalon is great because there are not mature trees close to the building. It's Montauk, it's very sunny. And the Long Island Railroad parking lot immediately to our south, it's just a lot of sky all day, every day.
So Katie, that loan that you've looking to take is $100,000, right? And
that's correct. Actually, also in 2021, the town allocated $30,000 of community development block grant funds, and that's for hard costs. So that is extremely helpful. Any funding source wants to leverage other sources. So when you put the funding package together, the more sources you have, the more attractive you are, the more people want to give you money. So
the request though is for the town to back that, and we would need to do a resolution to that
correct.
effect, correct?
Yeah, the CDBG has already been allocated. It's ready to go. We're just finalizing contracts and hammering out the paperwork on that. And IPC has already indicated that they really want to fund this and also future projects. Avalon is our smallest property. It is our oldest property. This one is the easiest to do. So we decided to go ahead with this one first, just to get the ball rolling. But we have big aspirations on this. Accabonac is 50 units of housing on 30 acres. There's a few numbers on here. Solar potential that's 100 with Accabonac, it's 182 kilowatts. That's what the system can process, given the exposure, the roofs, the location, and also environmental data, our climate and heating days and all that stuff. You come up with a figure that enumerates what the potential is for an installation at this site. And we believe the production will be 220 kilowatt hours annually, which is more than the property consumes. So we'll have a surplus of energy. Springs Fireplace is a little bit trickier. There's more mature trees. The buildings are sited different, the orientations, but we believe that we can install a system with a potential for 123 kilowatts and an annual production of 144,000 kilowatt hours. Gansett Meadow has a high potential, again, because there's clearing around it, good exposure. Those roofs are brand new. And we anticipate 189 kilowatts of potential and annual production of 227 kilowatt hours. Gansett Meadow, incidentally, is all electric. There are mini split heat pumps there. So that property would be very close to as high efficiency as we can get. It's new construction. This one also should go pretty quickly and easily in terms of installation. 3 Mile Harbor, under construction. This is shading. Sunrise Solar took a look at this. The proposed arrays, we are working with the architects and the modular builder we've already established where the penetrations in the roof will be, that the utility rooms can accommodate the inverters and the meters, and that the roof trusses can handle the weight of so we're building to solar. It wasn't part of the original budget for the construction. But we want, and there's also conduit buried. So when we do fund and start the installation of solar arrays, a lot of the infrastructure at this property is already in place, as it is at Gansett Meadow. When we built Gansett Meadow and Amagansett, we laid the conduit so that we know that we can connect the buildings and the meters. That's the site plan. I don't have photographs of it. I might have photographs on here, but anyway. So the grant from NYSERDA was for feasibility and really the proliferation of solar arrays. We reached out to Windmill and Whalebone and also counterparts in Southampton to ask them if they might want to participate in this. And we did meet with Kathy Burns from the Windmill Group. They're very interested. The funding would be separate. It would be their own project. But while we're looking at the community and the feasibility of interconnectivity with multifamily properties, there's an issue with metering. All of our residents have their own meter. So we have to figure out how to aggregate it. It would be community generated solar and also community distributed solar so that all of the residents benefit equally. Somebody at Springs Fireplace where there's more mature trees and it's shady, that property isn't going to produce as much. Avalon out in Montauk is going to produce a tremendous amount of energy, more than the project needs. We want to know that we can share the wealth and make this as equitable as possible. In order to do that, we have to take a look at the tariff structure with the Public Service Commission. This is still new territory for them, but we're pushing so that we can do both community generated and community distributed. So hopefully that will further other projects in other places. But we reached out to Windmill and Whalebone. They are interested. Whalebone Village solar potential is 193 kilowatts with an annual production of 236 kilowatt hours. That's a lot of energy. Windmill 2, 260 kilowatts, 305 kilowatt hours annual production. That takes a lot of coal, oil, and gas out of play. St. Michael's also 127 kilowatts, 169 kilowatt hours annual production. So we used our consultant, incidentally, I should have said this from the top. Chuck Schwartz is working with us. He is very knowledgeable. He's been doing this for a long time. He's familiar with both the politics and the engineering and the implementation of this. He knows how to navigate getting a project of this size done. So I think we already, since 2021, have hammered out a lot of details and made a lot of progress. So where we are now, we did all the preliminary site visits, took photographs, inventoried all the meters. Helioscope is a tool that you use. You look at the property and it calculates the heating days and all that, does all the math and the calculations. We know that we will receive $1 per watt in rebates from New York State and also federal investment tax credits, ITC. And I have some numbers coming up in the slideshow. We're talking to contractors. We already have our contractor off the county bid. It's Eldor for Avalon. They may or may not do the installation at all the others, but they're approved by the county, pre-approved vendor. CDBG is good with them. So they will be doing Avalon at least. We are also talking to contractors about the handling of the energy, the aggregation, the communicating that to PSEG, and then receiving the credits to or delivering the reduction, the discount to the subscribers who are our residents. We're ready to begin this quarter in 23. The order that we anticipate for building these doing these solar installations is Avalon first, 3 Mile Harbor because it's already under construction, Accabonac because we have new roofs. We did a big CDC weatherization about 4 years ago, I think it was. New windows, new storm doors, attic blown insulation, and so that is ready to receive. Gansett Meadow will be next, and then Springs Fireplace last. The budgets for these projects, in red in those center columns, you see the rebate, that's the $1 per kilowatt rebate, and then the investment tax credits pay for half of these projects. Avalon, the total cost is $233,050. After rebate and tax credits, it's $121,835. And from that, you take the $30,000 community development block grant. And so that's about, it's $100,000 we're looking to borrow from IPC, and Avalon has reserves to pay for the rest, cash out of pocket. And this will be on our website. I believe it's on the town website. If people want to look at these numbers a little bit more closely, I won't go through all of them. We also have on our website reports for each of the properties, how Helioscope calculated the yield and what the cost of the individual properties would be, and preliminary solar designs for each, and our contact information. Catherine Casey is me, Katie Casey, and Chuck Schwartz from Technical Creative. So that's all I have for the solar. Are there
Any questions from board members on the solar?
No questions. Just very supportive of your efforts, Katie. I mean, this is, it's wonderful. There's been so many impediments to housing affordability and the connection to opportunities for participating in renewable energy and reducing greenhouse gases. And this is huge huge breakthrough and first steps. I know that tariff is still out there, and there's been some roadblocks that have been taken down for community solar, community distribution, but I know Southampton is, we're looking to see what Southampton is doing,
Mhm.
but you've made huge leaps with Chuck on being able to bring everyone into the benefits of reducing greenhouse gases and participating and saving money.
Mhm.
So I think there'll be more money coming down the line from the federal grants to build back better for these projects as well. So we'll have to keep an eye out for what's available
Mhm.
in the next couple of years. But I think there's going to be some good funding coming down the line.
Yeah, I
to
know
help
you,
with this.
you actually have been working the town and you in particular have been working on a lot of initiatives like this. So if you come across any funding opportunities,
send 'em
please
right your
do
way.
let me know. I'm happy
Yeah,
to-
but I think Chuck will probably know. I may be going to Chuck. So yeah, this is wonderful news.
Yeah.
And you're producing so much solar. It's really helps us with our overall goals of renewable energy as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to add on to Kate's comments and just say, this really does align very well with the town's efforts over the years to, transition away from fossil fuels and to promote renewable energy, whether it's wind energy or solar. And, the town built the first megawatt scale solar farm on the South Fork and offered, when I became supervisor, the rooftop incentives for Energize, Solarize East Hampton. We are looking at, I think I calculated 927 megawatt hours produced by all these projects together once they're online. That's a significant input onto the grid of renewable energy. The fact that it will help reduce and make even more affordable the housing at these housing authority properties is really an important aspect. And I know just from a personal standpoint, when we first offered the Solarize, I had originally built the house to take advantage of solar, but had never put it on the roof. And in 2018, I solarized my house. Last year, I produced 125% of the electricity we used at the house. And that means 25% surplus is going back on and it's providing all of my energy with renewable energy. So instead of having to rely on fossil fuel burning plants, one of those peaker plants we have right in our own community off Buell Lane, and it spews diesel into the air every single day in the summer. I drive along the long lane, look across the farm fields, and you see this big plume of diesel smoke emanating. We've tried to get LIPA to get rid of that. They have a through a contract with Keyspan to run those through 2027. So far, we haven't been able to get them to stop it, but this would reduce the need. Anytime we're adding more renewable energy on the grid, those diesel generators won't have to run as much. So it's just a plus all around. I'm glad to see you've been very proactive on the energy sector with new housing projects. So I commend you and your board for that. And any way we can help, I'm happy to support.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But,
So,
If I could just,
Sure,
so I've been the liaison for the last year and a half to the Housing Authority. So I've had a privilege of going to their meetings. And I don't think folks really realize how green, your projects are. You said today that Gansett Meadow is all electric. We saw pictures the other day at the meeting of the rain garden, that massive rain garden you've put in at 3 Mile Harbor. And I think that, we need to talk more about that these projects that you're putting forth are, as the supervisor said, we've been looking at everything. We declared a climate emergency, and everything we look at through that lens. And you've been doing this for quite some time, and that you've got a real plan in place, and you've been planning for this for quite some time. If you've got your CDBG money, that means that was requested years ago, because we know how long it takes for that money to come down from the feds. So it's just been great, Katie. And and this gets talked about quite a bit at the meetings, and maybe you could share with everyone, I don't think everybody knows how the East Hampton Housing Authority is structured, as you as the executive director, but if you want to just talk a minute about the commissioners and how, your group functions, I think that would be helpful for the community.
Sure. So I just had a long conversation with a gentleman yesterday who was trying to navigate affordable housing in East Hampton. And there, excuse me, there are essentially three entities. There's the Office of Housing and CD, which of course is a town department. There's Windmill and Whalebone and St. Michael's, which is a private nonprofit. The Housing Authority is a state agency created at the invitation of the municipality, and we've been in existence since 1983. We're not a department, we're a component unit of the town. So we do have a relationship. We are a governmental agency, but we're corporate and politic. So we're both. It's an authority, like a bridge and tunnel or water or power. They're authorities. They're public service public service agencies that are governmental and also corporations. So we're just like that. The Board of Commissioners is a 6-member board currently. Until 2 years ago, it was a 5-member board, all 5 members appointed by the town board for 5-year terms. And then 2 years ago, although we're not required to, because we're what's considered a very small PHA with 130 units of housing, the commissioners proactively opted to amend our bylaws to add a tenant commissioner. So the tenant commissioner is elected annually by residents. That one commissioner is not appointed by the town board. So we now have 6 commissioners. And the commissioners hire the executive director. That is my position. I've been at the Housing Authority since 2012. Prior to that, in 1999, I was hired by the Office of Housing and CD. So I just took one little jump to the left there. We have a lot of mutual clients and good cooperation. The relationship between OHCD and the Housing Authority, we have an excellent working relationship, which is not true in every municipality. Sometimes there's a little territoriality, but we've never experienced that here. There are 6 staff members in total. There are 3 administrative staffers, myself. We have an accounts manager and an administrative assistant. So there are 3 in the office, and we also have 3 resident managers, one in Avalon out in Montauk, one at Gansett Meadow in Amagansett, and then one that is responsible for both Accabonac and Springs Fireplace Apartments in East Hampton. When 3 Mile Harbor is done, we will be hiring another resident manager for that property because it's 50 apartments. And we will also be hiring another administrative person. We'll be needing another office person to handle, intake of rents, fielding calls from tenants. There's a lot of paperwork involved. Many of our tenants are subsidized with Section 8, though not all. We do some of the leases ourselves in the Housing Authority office. Some of them come from whatever agency is subsidizing that rent. We work closely with DSS and TAMF and town human services, and there's a lot of interagency communication and back and forth with mutual clients. So I just want to kind of jump back to something, Peter, that you said. At the Housing Authority, our responsibility and our commitment is first and foremost to creating safe, affordable, decent housing for residents. And with the solar project, I would love to tell you that I'm trying to tackle climate change, and I am. But first and foremost, we want to be able to get folks that 15% reduction,
Mhm.
and also the mini split heat pumps are very comfortable. They control their own heat. If you have a building with an oil burner, the apartment next to the oil burner, they get a little bit of noise, and that's always hotter, and the water's, running down the line. So there's a hot shower over here and a not so hot shower over there. So the comfort of the residents is first and foremost. And if we do something to take coal, oil, and gas out of play, great.
So you just perfectly explained why renewable energy, it ticks every box for folks. It
Mhm.
works great, it's affordable, and it also does the other thing with removing greenhouse gases and the impacts that happen. It's just not removing the greenhouse gases, but reducing the impacts
Mhm.
that we're facing. So, I think you just perfectly articulated the win-win-win of renewable energy.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Katie?
I did just want to mention this last Saturday, we had a lovely reception at Gansett Meadow. Commissioners, Kathy as our liaison was there. Staff members were there to remember 5 commissioners who passed. In my short tenure at the Housing Authority of 12 years, we've lost 5 commissioners. David Lee, Barbara Jordan, Pat Keegan, Pat Gilchrist, and Joe O'Connell, all giants in East Hampton. So we, through David's guidance, we ordered 5 benches from Hildreth, had some little bronze plaques made. So if you get a chance, if you're in the area of Gansett Meadow, which is right next to 555, if you want to sit on a bench and look out over the preserve, you're more than welcome to come hang out with David, Barbara, Pat 1, Pat 2, and Joe.
I was actually
Yeah,
there
and-
this morning about 7:30, picking up my daughter's friend so I can take him to work. She lives there with a single mother, and the facility looks beautiful, particularly the wildflower meadow in the front, how it keeps going back so easily into it. It looks very appropriate, and it's being taken care of very well.
Yeah, I just wanted to use that as another example of how the housing authorities in developing these projects is really staying in alignment with some of the key issues that we're trying to address here in town, and having the wildflower meadow, a pollinator garden, if you will, out in front. It's so beautiful driving by and seeing all those wildflowers in bloom throughout the season. And, so you don't have to have a mowed green lawn to have a beautiful property. In fact, it's another way of reducing greenhouse gases, because it doesn't need to be mowed every week and
Yeah.
maintained that way, which reduces the noise, reduces the pollution, and you still have something beautiful to look at. So just another example of how you're on the cutting edge with development of these properties and how it aligns with the town board's goals.
We're trying anything we can do.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it takes a village. We're a town.
It's that much less lawn we have to mow, so we save money on
That's right.
property maintenance.
There you
by having
go.
a
There you
beautiful
go.
garden.
There's the message.
Keeps paying dividends. So
Thank you.
thank you so much, Katie. It's great having you here today. Next up, we have the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee's Municipal Septics 2023 update. And we have Melissa Winslow here to present. And David, I know you sit on that committee as a ex officio, and you wanted to give an
Sure.
introduction.
Yeah, just a quick introduction. I want to thank the town board for seeing through with not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And very simply, as the town made strides to increase the water quality of our sole source aquifer in mandating IA upgrades and also incentivizing it, then through the CPF water quality funding, the town had an option to look at their own systems. And then to go into we developed a process of what systems should be done first, how do we do it, and how do we justify it? And working with natural resources, and particularly Melissa Winslow, they came up with a priority list on there. And slowly we've been able to tick them off with the help of our engineers, Val Kim McLean. They get installed, and we've had some good success there. We've had some challenges, but that's okay. And we're working through those. And we thought it would be an appropriate time frame right now for Melissa to give us an update of this program and how and where we are with our municipal septic upgrades. So Melissa, thank you.
Thank you, David. So I'm Melissa Winslow, Principal Environmental Analyst in the town's Natural Resources Department. And I just wanted to give an update on how the town is really leading by example with upgrading our town-owned municipal facilities to innovative alternative low nitrogen sanitary systems. So these IA systems are capable of reducing nitrogen in the effluent up to or over 70%. And they're required to meet a standard of less than 19 milligrams per liter, according to the Suffolk County Health Department. Many of these systems that we've been installing have averages well below that 19 milligrams per liter. So we have started with prioritizing all of the town-owned facilities. And as this is community preservation funding, the villages, the incorporated villages also are contributing to that fund. So we've also included the Sag Harbor Village and East Hampton Village facilities. So we have 49 properties with comfort stations or restroom facilities, 49 in the town of East Hampton, 1 in Sag Harbor. Most of their facilities are actually hooked up to their municipal sewage treatment plant. And then there's 14 in the village of East Hampton. So what we did was we put together a priority ranking list. Basically, we were looking at 4 different conditions and ranking them from 1 to 5 for a total score of possible of 20. And then going down the list of all of these facilities to prioritize them. So we looked at need. So if a system was failing, or if there was evidence that a system was contributing to water quality issues in the area, they would receive a higher score. The use, so highly used facilities, facilities that are open to the public or used year round, rank higher. Location, so if they're located in close proximity to a priority water body, as called out in our water quality improvement plan, those sites ranked higher. And then the ease of install or timing. So if a system was older, needed a new system, we were doing other work in the area that facilitated or made it easier to install a new system, those sites also ranked higher. So the goal is really to lead by example and install these facilities at government or town-owned facilities. So we followed a pretty straightforward process. After we identified projects that should move forward based on the priority on the ranking list, we moved forward with sites to engineering. So that's where our engineers with LK McLean came in. We would request and review a proposal from the town engineer for an IA design at each individual property, retain the engineer via town board resolution, and then work on getting final designs ready for permitting. The permitting process, the engineer would submit to Suffolk County Department of Health. We would get our permit to construct, and then we would get a town limited septic registry, so for our own tracking purposes. And then we would move forward with a bid through the purchasing department for installation, retain the lowest qualified bidder, and then get these systems installed. So this is just a snapshot of our priority ranking list. So the top 26 properties so far, we have in one phase or another of getting approval, being considered, looking at site conditions to move forward with other engineering or installation. The highest priority sites tended to be comfort station facilities, which had the highest public use. The year-round facilities would rank higher and then move down from there. But this just shows a map of all the facilities, the top 26 facilities, and corresponds to the highest priorities to date. Includes the status and location of each of these sites. So the blue crosses show the sites that we've completed in installation. So we have 5 in the ground right now, and we're working on many more. So we have Westlake Comfort Station, Lions Field East in Montauk, and then we have the Amagansett Comfort Station, which was our first one that we installed. Herrick Park in the village, they received a grant from the town to install a system there. and then Stephen Hand's Path. So we have several others that are in the process being designed. We'll be putting a few out to bid this fall, and a few sites that have obstacles or constraints that have put them on hold temporarily, which I'll get into some of those obstacles in a later slide. So this is just an example of what the design looks like. This is the design that was prepared by LK McLean for the Amagansett Comfort Station and the municipal parking lot in Amagansett. So this kind of just shows the different components that are included in the design, the existing components, and the proposed IA system, if we can reuse the cesspools or we need to install new. And then it basically details the design calculations, so the design flow, density flow, and how that compares to what gets installed. So for the Amagansett Comfort Station, we had a design flow of 950 gallons per day. This compares to the density allowable flow, which is calculated based on health department standards, of 2,491 gallons per day. The density flow for the site was considered for the use, which was projected to be 190 people per day at 5 gallons per day on average, which is a requirement by the health department. And all of these new IA systems are required to be designed by a licensed engineer and architect, and that's a New York State requirement.
And also so the Amagansett, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah, no, go
the
ahead.
Amagansett Municipal Parking Lot, even though it was a lower on the priority list, it corresponded with the reconstruction of the municipal parking lot. What we didn't want to do is have the municipal parking lot fully asphalted, then had a saw cut it in and damage it. So we prioritized that install in 2020. That was when the first flush was. And then it's a continuous parking lot of asphalt, so there's no cracking, heaving, and it extends the life expectancy of the asphalt base too.
Right. Yeah, so that one ranked higher based on the need and the timing, as well as the use, because that's a year-round used facility. So these are just some examples of the installation. So this is Lions Field East. This was a traffic rated install. So the Fuji Clean IA system is actually installed in a precast concrete vault. And then the right photo is the site after being restored with sod and pretty much ready to be used before the Little League season started this year. The system was also installed the end of 2022. This was Stephen Hand's Path. This is another traffic rated install as the system itself is in the parking lot. It just shows an example of what's involved with the installation. They're usually installed within a few days. It's usually a pretty quick turnaround. Residential installs are about a day to a day and a half, so it's not too much of an intrusion. So just some of the obstacles that we've come across with through this process. So the town systems are considered, at the health department level, commercial, so they need to be sampled prior to abandoning the existing system. On occasion, there can be some contaminants that are identified in those bottom samples in the cesspool. So if that does happen, it's happened on a few of our sites. It involves a remediation requirement at the health department. So we need to remove the waste and sediment from the cesspools and then collect bottom samples until we get a clean sample. The source of contamination is usually from something being dumped down the drain at some point in time. And we had, those 3 sites have been remediated and completed. The only issue really with this is there's usually a pretty quick turnaround time because the health department wants it remediated as soon as possible. So we've been just doing our best to get through that process with our procurement, but it really hasn't been an issue. And Matt and Kevin have been really helpful with getting these things done in a really short period of time. We also have some obstacles that limit some of the installation potential at some of these sites. So particularly at some of the comfort stations at beaches, can be a pretty big area of disturbance, and we really want to limit the amount of vegetation that we have to remove to install these systems. So we have to be a little bit more careful at those sites. Depth to groundwater can be a real issue. Shallow groundwater in certain areas can be really limiting and complicate an installation. We've kind of held off a little bit on ditch plains as that has very shallow groundwater until we can identify, the best possible solution and to get that system installed. Available land area can also be an issue. Limited space can be problematic, particularly with the Montauk Police Substation. That was one of the sites that we wanted to move forward, and we're going to be considering that this fall and working with Matt and Kevin on the feasibility of that site, getting a new IA system. One other issue is separation from potable wells. So based on the use of these comfort station systems, they need to meet a separation of 200 feet from potable water wells. So for Fresh Pond and Big Alberts, those are two other sites, but we'd like to move forward this fall and looking at feasibility. And we will likely need to either hook up to public water for Fresh Pond or install new potable water wells that meet that separation. One other issue that's come up more recently is some odor concerns. So there have been some complaints during the startup time, and we've actually received some of this from residential property owners that have done the upgrade during the startup time while the microbial activity is ramping up and getting to that optimal treatment. There can be some odor. So in order to remedy this, we've worked with the vendor who supplies the FujiClean systems, AWS, and they recently completed installations of inline fans on all of our newly installed FujiClean systems. So previously, the systems rely on passive ventilation in order to prevent the air from going back into the pretreatment tank and then leaking out of the cast iron covers. So the inline fans basically suck the air through and prevent that from leaking out. We're also going to be installing some carbon filters on the vent stacks just as a secondary precaution to make sure that there are no odor issues.
If I could just add one more on that, some of those locations were near the parks also that we have, let's say in Montauk or even Herrick Park. Sometimes it could be just increasing the amount of material on top of it, increasing the grade on there. The vendor did come out, I believe McLean came out also, and they did smoke tests. So they saw where any smoke was leaching out of it, the system. So time will tell on there. But there are options for us to use different forms of technology. She's noticing the vent pipes and they call it odor hogs to try to remove that odor that's there. That was probably one of the biggest things we heard in Montauk, at Lions Field, and you're also in Herrick Park right now too.
So some of our proposed and upcoming projects. So we've already completed the installation of Lions Field East. So we're proposing moving forward with engineering design for the Western Comfort Station towards the end of this year. This property is actually New York State Park, so we will have to work with the New York State Parks to get that installed, and we had no issues with the other system. As I said before, the Montauk Police Substation, we want to look at the feasibility of upgrading the system based on the available space and disruption to the parking lot. Fresh Pond and Big Alberts as well, we want to look into, and we will be looking at upgrading the water source there to meet that setback. And then Marine Patrol at Gann Road, we actually started the process of the engineering design for this one. I just wanted to call it out because it's a little bit more complicated. This site is actually sitting on fill material, and there's also limited space there, so that makes it a little bit more complex, but we're going to be working with Matt and Kevin this fall on that. Maidstone Park, there's two systems being proposed at the pavilion and the ball fields. Those systems went out to bid and are going to be going in this fall. Second house in Montauk, we did have to do remediation at that site. It's been completed and we'll be going out to bid this fall as well. And then South Lake Montauk, which is being incorporated into our South Lake Park restoration project with stormwater abatement designs. That's going to be going out to bid together this fall as well.
SYA also,
Oh, yeah, SYA.
Springs Youth Association.
And that will
building.
be coming up very soon. So one other thing we wanted to talk about today is we are installing all of these IA systems at town facilities, and in working with the Water Quality Committee, we thought it would be prudent to do some monitoring to ensure that all of our systems are functioning properly, make sure that we don't need to do any modifications to improve the treatment. So I'm requesting today approval to implement a program for ongoing monitoring of all our IA systems moving forward. This could be baseline monitoring of all of these systems that we've completed. So we have 5 if we want to include Herrick Park in the village. We would collect samples for nitrogen series for analysis of the influent and effluent, so we can look at the percent reduction in the nitrogen. We got an estimate from our engineers of what this might cost, and it's approximately $2,345 for one event. So that's the influent and effluent of those 5 systems. Sampling plans could then be tailored to each of individual site based on the usage after we do a baseline monitoring. And then as an alternative, we could do a baseline monitoring and then just do a random sampling annually. And then that way, if we identify any issues, then we can continue monitoring at that site until we remedy it. And then we can just assess any continued monitoring as we move forward. So this would allow the town to verify that these systems are functioning as intended. With all of the IA systems, operations and maintenance is a requirement. So the first 3 years of operations and maintenance are typically included within the installation costs. So we will be including the first 3-year contract in the bid for the install when we go out to bid to install these. And this would be paid by CPF Water Quality. It's typically around $800 per year per site. So $2,400 per site for the 3 years. And then beyond the first 3 years, we will be required to renew the contract, and that would move forward with town operations funding. I've been working with LK McLean at putting together a tracking sheet to make sure that we have these O&M agreements updated every cycle for these different sites. So I think that just gave a quick overview of where we are at, what we're proposing for municipal septic upgrades within the town, and how we can move forward and continue to improve water quality.
Thank you, Melissa. Any questions or comments?
I do. Melissa, thank you. This is really helpful. The proposed monitoring program, would that also be funded by CPF Water Quality monies?
Yes. So standalone monitoring for water bodies isn't included in, as allowable in the CPF law, but remediation monitoring, so as it's tied to a project, can be funded.
Great.
I think this is, of course, another giant step in helping our improve our water quality. And as we know, we do have water quality issues across the town. So this is very important programs. I was thinking when you were talking about the residential program that perhaps it's time to have another presentation of the program at a future town work session.
Sure.
So that folks who don't know about it can look to take advantage of it. I think it would be timely to do that and bring that forward because it's such a great incentive program.
Yeah, great. We have done some outreach to different communities. I've done a couple of presentations with the Lionhead and Clearwater Beach communities. But I think it would be great to do another townwide presentation and a little update.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Melissa. You do a great job with this and the Water Quality Technical Advisory Committee. I want to thank Councilmember Lease, who's led the charge on upgrading our municipal system. She's done a great job with that, David, and we've made a great deal of progress. And as some are aware, that any new systems that we put in will be low nitrogen right from the start, and probably the next one we'll put in for a new project will be at Boys and Girls Harbor. That will likely take place early to mid-fall this year. So, we just have to keep doing our part as a municipality and not just talking the talk and
The walk now.
walking the walk.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks so much.
That brings us up to our last agenda item, which is the NYSERDA site feasibility assessment. We have Kim Shaw, Director of Natural Resources here. And this is assessing feasibility for solar installations on town properties throughout the town.
We also had, I think, Gillian Black for this as well as Bruce Hemnick, and I added them into the meeting for their last points.
Great,
Sure, I
thank
was
you
gonna
very
say
much,
that Bruce
Jason.
Humanek from BHE Strategies and Gillian Black from NYSERDA are gonna join the presentation. I'm gonna do old school and just do a handout. This is FAQ on the program.
Thank you, Kim.
So I'm here today to talk about a draft MOU that you've seen or memorandum of understanding between the town and NYSERDA to conduct a feasibility study for the development of a portfolio on potential solar and battery storage on several town parcels. NYSERDA is partnering with local communities throughout New York State to identify and advance underutilized land for renewable energy projects. They take difficult sites and make them build ready for private renewable energy developers to construct the solar PV on them. So we've identified it's this list is flexible. We can add to or take off properties, but so far we've identified 12 town properties, and that includes the Accabonac and Bullpath former brush dump sites. Accabonac Solar already has a modest system installed, and we're looking to maybe expand or put some battery in there. Bullpath, there's still sufficient area. We have the cell tower there and the fire department front, but we're looking in the back. Fresh Pond, we have a mine site that we've been looking at. I've been talking to the chief of police about the police department and the fire training academy, maybe doing some carports there, something on the roof, but he's definitely in favor of the carports to protect the equipment and vehicles so they're out of the weather. Abraham's Path recreational field or Terry King Ballpark, again, looking for something in the parking lot area, maybe on the building. And like I said, this is a feasibility study. It's conceptual, so teams are going to be looking at what each site has the potential for. Another site is the Montauk Playhouse and possibly the fire department. A fire department member happened to be in my office when we were talking about this and said, hey, the fire department's definitely interested. We also got the Springs Fire Department there putting a new roof on and interested in solar. And the last site I have is the Child Development Center. Again, on the roof, potentially in the parking lot. Carports are the new thing. They're a little expensive, but the behind this idea is bundling multiple sites to reduce overall costs and get energy developers interested in these larger scale operations. We really don't have something like, in Brookhaven where they have industrial centers and they'll have 27 plots with big buildings. So those were like the first big energy projects that were picked up. And ours are so scattered. So that's why we're trying to put a bundle together to make it more attractive to these developers.
I think we also have an area of already open land on the airport property that may be
that was
feasible
another
as well.
consideration. I think there's a 2-acre vacant piece up there. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Bruce and let them fill in some more of the details that I didn't get into. And so I wanted to say, we'll still own the properties, but we will lease them to these developers. And there's also a community benefits package that we can negotiate for any one of these particular projects.
Right, and those negotiations are separate from the MOU. The MOU is simply for feasibility, so it doesn't lock us into any ultimate contract with.
No, and these guys can walk us through the process, like what's the first step and how we develop these properties.
Thank you, Kim. Welcome, Bruce and Gillian. Pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank
you for having us.
Yes. I was going to say, thank you, Peter. I was with another company 5 years ago. We headed up the South Fork Peak Savers and did a lot of work with the town that I hope was very successful. I know it was for the utility. So we look forward to doing something again here. I will hand it over to Gillian. He's the director of the program for NYSERDA in Albany. And he can kind of give you a sense as to what it's, more detail as to what it's all about, and also what we've done so far, and what we see going forward. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bruce, for that little shout out for the peak savers. I think at this point, the town is saving something like $100,000 a year annually because of that work. So that
Great.
made another positive step in the right direction. Welcome, Gillian.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me. You can hear me all right?
Indeed.
And if I shared a screen and showed a brief presentation, would you be able to see it?
Yep. Let's give it a try.
Let's give it a shot. All right. How's that?
Yes, that's great.
Excellent. All right, great. So thanks for having me. I'm Gillian Black. I'm the director of the Build Ready program here at NYSERDA. I'll go through, let's see, where am I? Just a brief agenda. Here we are. Stop me at any time if you have questions or you want me to clarify anything further. Just first, an overview of the program. We were put into place to address difficult sites throughout New York State, sites that the private sector was not developing, essentially sites that are too expensive to put renewable energy on, but are perfect for renewable energy, mostly brownfields, et cetera. And I'll share these slides with you so you can have them and look at them in more detail. But we're part of the CLCPA. We're trying to drive development of renewable energies to hit our goals. I think we've got about 500 megawatts in our portfolio right now that we're pushing. We are taking these difficult sites, we're developing, we're looking at landfills, brownfields, airports, any underutilized site, a parking lot. We're looking at prisons that are closing. We're looking at fossil fuel generators that are being decommissioned. Part of our program is focused on creating community benefits along with these revenue generating projects so that we're putting back into the host communities some of the benefits of the project. Because we're not private, we're not profit motivated, and so we can negotiate good terms with our host communities. And we work within the host communities, within stakeholder groups to determine what are the benefits we want to bring. Outside of the lease payments, there's potentially local betterments, all sorts of things, right? Focusing on disadvantaged communities, et cetera. But the important thing to note there is that it's in consultation with, in this case, the town and any other stakeholders. And we're responsible for all of the work. We're well-funded, and we act as a private developer would to take the projects, the sites through from initial exploration, origination, through all of the development parallels, interconnection, environmental, regulatory, permitting, et cetera. Just some of the benefits. So we typically would negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes, working with IDAs. We can also work directly with the taxing jurisdictions. We put together a host community benefit package, as mentioned. We're looking into initiating utility bill crediting for the local host communities. We're working with the Public Service Commission to try to get that implemented. We are mandated to provide benefits to disadvantaged communities. And as I mentioned, some local betterments. In the case of a carport, for instance, if the parking lot needed work, we could roll that cost into the CapEx, and possibly even take on some of the operations and maintenance of a parking lot or something like that. And there's always the economic development portion, typically short-term jobs, but there's opportunities to work with colleges and universities or other job training organizations to get people involved. We are part of the large-scale renewables group at NYSERDA, and so that means we're typically focusing on projects greater than 5 megawatts. And so we're looking at typically 25, 35 acres, but more recently we've been approaching it a little bit differently to aggregate smaller projects into a virtual generator that can bid into the NYSO in the wholesale market and be operated in unison. So this is why we're looking at your sites. We think there's some good prospects there, and that's how we would approach it.
Oops, sorry. Just a bit more detail on our development process. In the desktop screening, we're intaking thousands, tens of thousands of sites through DEC or EPA lists of contaminated sites. We're doing our own searching for sites. We're working with key channel partners, municipal entities, colleges, universities, et cetera, other state agencies to work through these sites. We screen them. We're figuring out what we could fit there. What are the potholes in the road? We're de-risking it as we drive down through this little inverted pyramid. Looking at the project sites, we're getting site control. We're negotiating lease option agreements. We're working through all the interconnection work with the utilities or the NISO. We've got consultants, legal, engineering, et cetera, to take us through this process. But at the end of the day, we've got a fully permitted project with site control through a lease option agreement. Typically, we package it, or them, the portfolio, into a competitive solicitation, and we auction it off to the private sector. And the private sector is bidding on the REC that they need, the renewable energy certificate value that they need in order to meet their required rates of return. We're also assessing bidders on qualifications, plans for delivery, operations and maintenance of the project. So it's partially cost-based and partially experience, qualifications, and delivery-based. A little bit more about the REC. So in New York State, we have the Tier 1 REC, Renewable Energy Certificate, and this is where all of the large-scale projects come in to get funding for that renewable energy portion of the project delivery. And so we're able to, as a program, adjust the value of the REC so that it offsets these projects' higher costs, essentially. So RECs might be awarded at, say, $60. Well, we can go up beyond that to make sure that the project is financially viable. And then it's a 20-year contract in which we have an interconnection cost adjustment and an inflation adjuster, so that we can make sure that if required after award of the project, because hidden costs come to bear or there are inflationary pressures, we can adjust the REC accordingly so that the project is still viable. So your town, you guys have done a lot of stuff. It's commendable. We're really excited at looking at all of this. I've only been with NYSERDA for a year, but I've been in the solar industry since 2005. And this is great. I mean, couldn't really ask for a better partner. So we'd love to work with you, and just, yeah, here we are. As mentioned, we're looking at 12 sites. So the MOU contains these sites and some of the terms. MOU is a non-binding agreement. It just says that we're going to walk the road together, and it allows us a little bit more comfort to spend more money than we have now in the investigation of these sites to determine what is viable for development and then move it forward. So, about 105 acres of potential buildable area. Please take this with a grain of salt. Potentially buildable area. We're trying to capture everything so that we look at it and are able to assess all of the options. And the idea is that we would whittle down the list of sites as we refine each individual parcel to determine what is buildable. And that will happen in negotiation and consultation with the town. So here's a list of the sites that we've identified, and just using broad brush strokes, determined the buildable acreage. In the second column, the associated potential megawatts of AC power, kind of the AC nameplate of the system. Potential technologies, PV, photovoltaics. BESS stands for battery energy storage systems, and EV is, of course, an EV charger or group of chargers. And then the project type in the final column here, What do we see on each of these sites? What is the potential? Would it be a ground-mounted system? Would it be a ballasted system using concrete blocks essentially so there's no penetration of the landfill cap, parking lot canopies, and potentially roof. I should say that we don't typically do rooftops. Rooftop systems lend themselves well to connecting behind the meter so that you're offsetting the power of the building itself. All of our systems go to the grid directly. We have to do that so that we generate these RECs, so that we're able to send to the wholesale market. So all of our systems would go straight to the grid. They would not be feeding buildings directly. But that's kind of why we started thinking about solar canopies. What if we were to put a solar canopy in a parking lot, put EV stations in there, add some energy storage? Now we have a resilient parking structure whereby if the power goes out, you're still able to charge your cars, electric cars. So that's kind of the thinking there. But just our systems always connect directly to the grid. They don't go behind the meter. All right. Just an example of buildable area. This is Springs landfill recycling. You can see we've got some areas here, a mix of ground mount, some potential rooftop, forest. We try not to cut forests at all. Sometimes, depending on the quality of the forest, we may consider it, but really try not to do that, especially as a program that focuses on brownfields. This is one example. And then we've got, here's obviously the Montauk transfer station. This would be a ballasted system. So there's some decent land there. We haven't gone in and done the full topographic assessment to understand exactly what is usable, but from our first initial glance, looks like you got about 20 acres here. So the next step in the process would be for us to refine all these sites in consultation with you guys. Here's a couple of examples of ours. One, active development in Brookhaven. It's the landfill. We're looking at this parcel A here and a portion of the cap or yet to be capped area to build a 20 megawatt solar PV project that would connect to the grid. As of now, we're not looking at using C for anything. It's forested, a little close to the neighborhood. So we'll probably put our interconnection equipment substation just on the corner here. This is a great project. Very excited. Pretty complicated, but we are working through it. And again, this would be a leasing arrangement between NYSERDA and the town. We would we've got an MOU with them. We've put the money into and the time into figuring this one out. Now we're assessing the financials, and we'd go into a lease option agreement then, and then go through the NYSO process and put it out to auction. Another one, this is our most advanced project. It's up in St. Lawrence County, town of Clifton, up in the Adirondacks. We have completed all of the permitting and interconnection work, lease option agreements, design. We permitted it through the APA. It's an old iron tailings pile from the Benson Mines operations, and we're really excited about this. This will go out to auction in, I'm hoping, September, but it'll be our first one. And this is turned into a 12 megawatt project with the option to expand up to 20. Like other developers, we're beholden to the interconnection process and existing infrastructure on the lines. And this project was originally slotted at 20 megawatts, but we had to downgrade it to 12. And that's where we are with that. So next steps for us, we'd love to work with you. We've worked with town staff to look at some of the sites, to vet some of them, and we've put this list together to try to capture all of them within the MOU. We've done some early development, but that would be kind of the next step, would be to go deeper into the preliminary designs of these sites once we once we determine where the actual buildable areas are. We've done some interconnection feasibility. The information down there with LIPA is a little opaque, but we're ready to start moving forward on that. Really, what we need to do before we go any further is to get the MOU in place, and then continue to work with the town to hone these sites down, after which we would begin our environmental analysis and our revenue financial work, determine the permitting pathways, get grid applications in, et cetera. And this is not all linear. So simultaneously, we can work with the town to look at community benefits packages, and then just take them through the development pathways. And that's all I've got for you. There's our contact info. We'll make sure you guys have this deck.
Great, thank you, Jillian.
Yeah.
Questions from board members?
I have questions on the process and just understanding when you say go out to auction and we own the property, but who writes the leases? And so I have a lot of questions on the exact process between the town, NYSERDA, and then the winners of the auctions for the recs.
Sure. So NYSERDA and the town would negotiate a lease option agreement for one or more sites. We would work through that between our respective legal counsels. We have, after we get through the MOU, we can address that and give you our lease template so you can review that. We negotiate the lease with you while we are securing all of the other approvals for the project. So we would go through permitting with you, the town. We would work with LIPA. These are likely DG projects, so they would go through the SIR process. So we would run through that as well. So the lease option agreement would be executed between the town and NYSERDA, and then it would transfer over with each parcel or parcels to the successful proposer of the auction, and they would exercise the lease. When we auction the project, it's much like a private developer develops a project and puts it out to tender to the private sector, and they buy it. So the winner of our auction will finance, complete all the final engineering, design, any other permitting activities, and then they would construct, own, and operate the systems. They would then be the party to the lease. They would then assume all the responsibilities for host community benefit payments, et cetera.
And when you say community benefit payments, is that separate from what they pay as a leasee and lease payments for the right to use the property?
Correct. So NYSERDA would have an appraisal, fair market appraisal of all the sites to determine the lease payments. Our standard term is 20 years with 3 5-year extensions. The host community benefits are separate from the lease agreement and revenue. Host community benefits would be negotiated with the town or any other entities. For instance, one project, we've worked with the IDA to establish a fund that would provide micro grants to local area businesses. And that would be worked out between, or it has been worked out between NYSERDA Build Ready and the IDA. And then that agreement ports over with the project LLC and becomes the responsibility of the successful bidder to fund. So we set the groundwork, we establish the contracts, and then the buyer assumes the responsibility of those programs. The billing credits are a little bit different. Larger projects, 25 megawatts and greater, are required to pay for 10 years, $500 per megawatt, which goes to the local ratepayers, and the utilities administer that billing credit program. we are trying to do something similar at a higher value and to work with the utilities so that each of our projects would just automatically come with billing credits that would go to the local area residents, to the ratepayers. We're still working on that one, so to be determined. Other benefits are really up to us, however creative we can get. You know, we would go through some stakeholder engagement with the town and other stakeholders to understand what people want. Are there capital improvements? You know, send people to the field to go to boys and girls clubs to understand what their needs are. You know, what can we do? It's really up to us, to the town, to the stakeholders, and NYSERDA to determine what we're going to do. We have a lot of leeway.
What's the minimum amount of acreage for a municipality to participate? Because you've identified some sites, for example, even though it's a small amount of acreage, the Montauk, the fire departments, we don't own their property. They're separate entities. So you've identified some other sites with some guesses on the amount of property to be used. But what is the actual minimum to be able to participate in the program?
So our minimum has typically been about 25 acres. But I think if we can cobble those together with a couple of different sites, we may be okay. Honestly, there's not a lot of acreage available in your town.
Yeah.
But we're willing to give it a go to see if we can cobble together enough for a project. So I don't have an answer as to the minimum acreage, but typically we're looking at 25, 35 acres minimum.
Thank you.
So, and your idea is obviously to aggregate all those individual separate properties together to reach that, you know, sweet spot, if you will. And
that's right. That's right. So FERC came out with Order 2222 requiring the virtual aggregation of distributed energy resources. NYSO is implementing a program right now. I think towards the end of the summer it should go live, whereby we would apply for interconnection of multiple projects, and then they would go into the NYSO program selling wholesale, and they could be operated in unison. So the buy-sell commands of these projects to the NYSO would be operated together, and it would be considered one virtual unit.
So if I may, I'm supportive of a build ready program that makes a lot of sense, but I just feel like I'm at a real disadvantage just seeing the maps and the types of infrastructure being proposed. I mean, we had been sent maps around and I had questioned because, for instance, the Abraham's Path Recreation Park, the block of property you were showing actually encroaches on the new senior center that we're building. And then when I looked at the CDCH, it doesn't show the ball fields that we built. So I was confused as to how this would all function. But then you put a chart up, Gillian, where you said what was looking to be ground mounted or parking canopies or rooftops. So I think while the next steps as you laid out was get the MOU in place and then hone down the sites, I think we need to take a step back and hone down the sites internally, because we really haven't had an opportunity to see what's the sites that are under consideration and how they'd be utilized. Because, for instance, on some of our recreation properties, we have, I guess as board members, long-range plans for what we'd like to, potentially expand on that property. So we wouldn't want to commit property that, we have 5 years from now, we'd like to see, more ball fields or, another Butler building or whatever it is. So for me, I need some time to process this and get my hands on this presentation to better understand what it is you're proposing. And I believe you had a timeline up, and I mean, is this having to be done or an MOU signed in August? Is that?
No,
drop
no,
dead
no.
or?
No, by no means, by no means. This is not a high pressure sale by any means. So we are happy to work with you. I think it's a great idea for you to look internally at all your sites and determine which of those sites you'd like us to explore. We're happy to work through that process with you, or we're happy to take delivery of a list of sites. And then we can decide whether it's a viable opportunity. We have a lot of work right now, and it would certainly be easier for us to have an indication of which ones you were for sure willing to go ahead with. So I would welcome that. That would be fantastic.
Is that part of the overall process of, what you would do anyway, as part of the MOU is you're going to take a look at all these sites and work with us directly to see what can be done on each one of the sites. And if we hit that, that magic number where it's feasible, then we could maybe go to the next step. But to the council members' point, like CDCH, you're listing that as potential for parking canopy and roof of building, not ground mounted. Some of them are ground mounted, some are parking canopy.
But then it says
So
under.
you have quite a bit, like at CDCH and the ball fields, you have a lot of parking lot.
Right. Which I wasn't aware when I looked at the map. It looked like it was going over,
it's outlining
wooded property.
It's outlining the total property, and within that total property, there are options. And so if you look at this chart, you'll see, like Montauk Transfer Station, that's the landfill. It says ballasted. That means that they're anchored with ballast solar panels on the landfill. A lot of this, we've done some preliminary work on some years ago now. We actually went out to bid and awarded contracts. Unfortunately, the best bidder went bankrupt before anything was done, and we were stuck in bankruptcy court with a lease that we couldn't terminate and we couldn't put out to bid. So it really kind of put us back on our heels, and it's been a number of years now to be able to get back to this point where we can take another look and try and put together some additional solar within the town. The brush dump was one of those sites we originally identified off Occoponack Road. We were able to get that done. That didn't get tied up in that bankruptcy situation. And so.
Okay. Yeah. We are happy to help you work through your list. My milestone of an executed MOU allows me to move forward and devote more programmatic budget to these sites. So to the extent that you'd like to look through them, I'd say go for it. Please do. And then tap us if you'd like to talk through any of them, and we can go forward from there.
So, and then I just have another question, and maybe this is better directed at you, Rob. If we're going to be adding locations that are not town-owned property, like the Montauk Fire Department, do we have to first enter into some type of agreement with the fire department, or how does that work?
Yeah, I think we should reach out to them beforehand to see if they're even willing to consider having them installed.
But get something in writing, right. I would imagine.
Yeah, we can also include them as a party to the MOU. So we can have one or more counterparties to include, or we can go into a separate MOU, or we can eliminate the site entirely.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. We're pretty flexible. And I'm not an attorney, so when we get to that point, we'll bring them in.
Yeah, because the lease, with the type of lease that we're writing is important to me as well. And I'm sure everyone else in terms of performance bonds and making sure that the maintenance is, if we're looking to give out 20-year leases for some of these things, the maintenance agreements and things like that are extremely important, particularly on the BES. Some of the places that you have that, just looking at the Accoponack Solar Farm, that was the solar that was put on there. I was on the zoning board. I think David, I think you were as well.
I was.
And that was pretty much as you could put on there. And I don't even know where you'd put a BES in the middle of that surrounded by houses. I don't even know if that's an optimum location for that. So it really is important to go through to look at these and see how they look great, but I need to know that realistically it's great as well.
Yeah. Yep. And that's certainly part of the process.
So I just want to follow up what the supervisor said. We did look at all of these properties several years ago, and the only one that became ripe and moved forward was Acabonic Solar. And that was our first lease. We get about $26,000 a year from that private vendor. And then the second one we did, so this program is a souped up Parks and Recreation application where there's added perks to this program, so the community benefits package. So we have a third-party lease back there also for 20 years, and it was all worked out by NYSERDA. So I'm not that as concerned, but we've done it.
Yeah. Any other
I just have
questions
to
or
feel good about
comments?
I'm sorry, Kate, I didn't hear you.
No, I just said I have to have my concerns, addressed as well. But yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bruce and Gillian and Kim, for the presentation today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Good time.
Take care.
And please forward it.
That,
Oh, Bruce, had you forwarded it already?
Yeah, I forwarded it to Kim.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you all. Have a good day.
so
you.
that brings us up to liaison reports. Kathy, you have a report for us?
I do. So last Thursday, Dr. Frederick Weinbaum, Interim Chief Administrative Officer of Stony Brook Southampton Hospital, was at the Senior Center prior to lunch to discuss the freestanding emergency department being constructed on Panago Place. And, many of our seniors were interested in the plans and the status of the project. And I was hoping that we could put in a request to the hospital to have a presentation here at the town board work session. That would be great. Just remind everybody, tomorrow is the groundbreaking ceremony for the Montauk Playhouse for the first floor aquatic center. It's Wednesday, August 2nd at 10:30. And, the community is welcome to attend. A couple weeks back, I met with the Anti-Bias Task Force, and they discussed their participation in this 375th anniversary parade. They've already put in their order. They wanted flags from all the countries around the world to drape on their float, and they're very excited, and they're in the planning stages of that. The diversity show that they do is going to start up again in September. LTV has been really booked this summer with all of the programming they've been doing. And they also talked a bit about community outreach. They have this brochure, We're All in the Same Boat, folks recall, but it appears that we've only printed it in English, and they've made a request that we translate the current brochure into Spanish and get that printed. So I'm going to be following up on that. I've been in conversation with the folks at Phoenix House. Their outpatient program, as everyone's aware, we give them a $50,000 grant, and they provide services for folks that have got addiction, whether it's drug addiction or alcohol abuse. And I wanted to come to a town board meeting, and I'm hoping they could come next Tuesday to make a presentation about their program and also educate us on International Overdose Awareness Day, which is on August 31st. And figured we'd listen to their presentation, and then would like to see a memorializing resolution in support of that I would propose at a meeting later this month. Next up, the East Hampton Arts Council, in conjunction with the Artists Alliance of East Hampton, is going to be sponsoring a creative networking night. It's going to be held on Thursday, September 14th at 6 o'clock at the East Hampton Library. And Carol Steinberg, the attorney, is going to talk about creators and appropriators, what the Warhol versus Goldsmith Supreme Court decision means for all creatives. I'm going to have a resolution on for Thursday, hiring Frank Vespi to film that. We've done that in the past for Creative Networking Night. And the East Hampton Artists Alliance has a $2,000 budget with the town. So the money would come from there. And then lastly, it's that time this weekend. We've got the junior lifeguard competition. I'm guessing that Councilman Lease wants to talk about the NIPPER program, but
Not anymore.
well, you can go into detail. I was outreached by TJ Calabrese and Johnny Ryan Jr. So you know that our lifeguards always participate each year in the National Lifeguard Tournament. So that's going to take place August 8th through 13th. I'm waiting to hear how many of our lifeguards are going to be participating because I'll have a resolution on for Thursday approving their attendance there. And also what they've asked is to be able to take the lifeguard boat and the trailer out of jurisdiction. They want to take it down to Virginia Beach with the competition paddle boards and torps and whatnot. And, you know, our attorneys, I mean, our insurance folks want to make sure that we've got that covered. So I'll have a resolution on for Thursday authorizing that. And that's what I have for today.
Thanks, Kevin.
So I'll just follow up with that. Yes, I was at the NIPPER program yesterday and this morning with my 6-year-old. And that's why I ran in here with sand in my feet because I was very happy to stay for beach flags where she got a medal. She's been working to get her medal. And it's just such a great program that Haley Ryan has. And it was spectacular. Even though she wasn't the quickest, I'll go with a line that we had from Saturday Night Live. It was strategery. She stayed to the right side every time there, and everyone went to the left, and all of a sudden she got a 3rd place trophy. So it is a wonderful culmination. That culmination also, as Kathy had mentioned, we'll have this week, and we'll have the junior lifeguarding tournament at Atlantic Avenue also. And then again, the teams will be going to nationals next week. The town lifeguards, they've had an historical showing at the main beach tournament, which was put on by the Village of East Hampton, Buildings and Grounds assisted, and also Hampton Lifeguard Association. They clinched both the men's and women's division titles.
Wow.
I went down there. There was the largest amount of teams showed up all the way from Long Beach, Smith Point, town of Hempstead. It was quite a great showing by all the lifeguards and their talents because the surf conditions were actually very challenging and churning at Main Beach. And the victories are a testament to both the lifeguards' conditioning and competency in the surf. Smith Point tournament was yesterday. I don't know how the town did yesterday. Also today, there is actually Captain Pucci, Cunningham, and Calabrese from the town of East Hampton for Ocean Rescue is culminating with the recertification exam being administered today. On Wednesday, the town lifeguards will also, and members of Ocean Rescue will also be participating in training with the New York State at Hither Hills in a submersion drill. Which is if someone becomes submerged, what they'll do is they form the line straight out and they search for a submersed swimmer. Currently, our staffing is at 129 guards. And with the challenging rip currents that we had from the storm that came through last Sunday, we had over 1/3 of our rescues were from this past week alone for the whole entire summer. The surface conditions have actually been pretty nice. Currently, they are today too. I want to thank the Governor Hochul, Kathy Hochul's program this past week, where the town took ownership of a state-issued drone, and we are currently working to put this into service. Bring our drone fleet to 4. They help doing daily surveys, flown over our protected beaches, weather permitting, looking at large schools of bunker, and where we've observed frequent predation of humpback whales, bluefish, dolphin, low-threat shark species. So again, thank you to the Governor Hochul for the program, and thank you to Chip Corman at the state for having it delivered to us. We took it into our possession last week through that grant, and we look forward to getting it into our fleet this week. We are struggling to have some issues with our jet skis currently right now. There are more design flaws resulting in some mechanical failures. So they're working through that, and we're going to be looking into newer procurement of different skis in the upcoming season. I want to thank Buildings and Grounds for their commitment to the cleanup of the sand in Montauk. Because the beaches had healed back the last couple of weeks, we were able to get our surf breaks onto ditch planes for the beach cleanups out there. There was a plethora of seaweed out there. We also added sand to some of the walk-on locations, particularly at Otis, where the Ditch Witch is. We put sand in there, and there was a lot of things going around to the town. I have to give that to Paul Colombo, who gets down there very early in the morning, Tony Lippman and his crew, and Richard Webb also for getting the sand there. It is noticeable. They took about 31,000 pounds of flopsum and seaweed off the beach. That's been scaled in that.
Wow. It's a lot of flotsam.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Again, as Kathy mentioned, with the Playhouse, I'm working with James Pincott and the Buildings Committee for the Playhouse. Last week we had a meeting where we're looking at interior designs and colorings, and we anticipate that's going to be coming to the town, to that project committee and to the town board for some interior design looks. They're looking at doing both phases in the design right now, because we hope that anticipation of other donors coming in, and again, it's economy of scale when they're working. They want to make sure it's congruent all the way through, cohesive. Lastly, I had a meeting yesterday with members of Hampton's Pride, Tom House, and other members of the CAC in Waynescott, and discussing potential memorials and also infrastructure increases at the Waynescott Green, and there will be more to come on that as we go through. I think they're going to go to the Waynescott CAC in September too. And that's all I have for now.
Great, thank you, David. Well, I'm pleased and proud to announce that. Go ahead, Kate.
Okay.
You're just ready to go down the line today.
Exciting though.
Mixing it up.
It sounded good, whatever you're.
All right, everybody's gonna have to wait. Everybody's gonna have to wait.
That was a good teaser. Okay. I have Gloria Frizzy had in just 3 short Saturdays has collected 393.94 pounds of food scraps that have been sent to our Springs Fireplace Recycling Center and turned into compost. So I think when we talk about scaling this up, we can see that this will be an important program to continue. I applaud Gloria for all the work that she's doing, and I can't imagine at the end of the pilot what the numbers are going to be, but they're significant, and I thank her for all the work that she's doing. If anyone in the community is interested in learning more about the composting program, you can contact easthamptoncompost.org. It's a beautiful website, and pick up a flyer for the program at the Springs Fireplace Recycling Center while you're dropping off your garbage, or at Town Hall. So that's quite a success already in that effort. The Litter Action Committee is sending out information on their next action, which they're looking for schools, organizations, individuals, neighborhoods, neighbors, any kind of group whatsoever, and individuals to participate in what we hope will be a town-wide East Hampton National Litter Awareness Day, National Cleanup Day. September 16th is the National Cleanup Day, a date where all across the nation, folks will be joining forces to keep our roads, streets, trails, mountains, and beaches free of litter and beautiful. It really is easy to sign up. Just send them the name of your group or your point person's contact information. You pick the time, the start, and wherever you'd like your cleanup to be. And we're hoping to shine a light and on this day to bring more attention to the litter issue that we have in the town. And as we've known on the beaches and what we're seeing this summer, it's significant. We have the businesses cooperating. We have the town is on it. What we're hoping is that each community member takes responsibility for their litter and has awareness for what it does when you're throwing that one cup out or just leaving stuff on our beaches or in our parks and what that means. So that's why they'll be looking to organize a townwide cleanup. We'll do a memorial resolution, hopefully with your support, town board members for this. And please email the ehliteraction@gmail.com address to find out more information about that effort. The zoning code amendments group is meeting weekly, as we have been. And in our discussions about where we're going next in the definitions and the dimensional table, an issue that's come up that I think we can address separately from the suite of zoning amendments that we're going to propose, and that is the issue of requiring an updated certificate of occupancy at change of ownership. We don't have that in our code right now. We are one of the few East Hampton municipalities that don't have that. And so therefore we have we only get an updated certificate of occupancy, which shows folks what's on the property, what's been approved on the property, a survey that goes along with it. If a bank requires it in order to get a mortgage, there's no consistency on that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. If it's a cash sale, nothing's required. And so we have certificate of occupancy here in town that haven't been updated. One recently, 41 years. So we don't know what's on the property. And in looking at the impacts of structures and looking at how we bring this into compliance with a comprehensive plan, I think one of the issues is underreporting or not knowing what's on property to begin
There's
with.
also a fire safety issue too,
Yeah,
to responders.
Yeah, there are a myriad of issues that come up, and not the least of which is the amount of clearing that the property is entitled to under the code. We have situations where properties had pre-existing clearing that they're entitled to, and others where it's been over-cleared in the meantime. And if there's no update of CO, somebody goes to build something on their newly purchased property, and now they find out, oh, surprise, you're out of compliance. And sometimes the property owners don't know it because they didn't get a CFO. So I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, so I think rather than waiting for that, I think we should, we'll have a formal presentation to the town board on draft legislation that would change that. Thank you. So yeah, that's one of the issues that came up. There's a couple of other issues that need to be tweaking that's in our code, but also we're looking and discussing overall how much clearing we're allowing to percentage of properties right now, and whether the amount of clearing that we allow right now is compatible with the comprehensive plan, and also what's happening in our world in terms of the climate crisis as our larger woodlands become incapacitated or start to collapse because of invasives like the southern pine beetle, the oak wood that's happening. We have less wooded lands in our town. So we're looking at how we allow clearing on individual properties, and if what we allow now meets what our comprehensive plan goals are. So that's one of the ideas that we're looking at. We're also discussing definitions. One of the other things about if people have put up additions on their properties and not gotten COs for them, is those properties are not being taxed for that habitable space. So we're under assessed on these properties, while other people are assessed wall to wall and paying their fair share. So that's another impact to look at. And that leads us into, and this is a discussion, and it's just the beginning of a discussion of how we, what we define as gross floor area and what we leave out. So lower levels, whether they're completely constructed for habitable space, media centers, it's all left out of GFA, and it's not put in to an assessment base. And that's one of the impacts of that. But there's pros and cons for that. So we're in the middle of gathering data on how other similar municipalities do it and what our town looks like as a whole through our GIS systems. And those are the discussions we're having right now in the committee.
Great.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Kate.
Now, Peter, your announcement.
I'm going to save it to the end of my.
Oh.
I'm going to make you wait even longer now. No, actually, I am very proud and pleased to announce, as of yesterday, Moody's Investors Service has again reaffirmed the town's AAA bond rating. So that makes all 6 years of this administration, and I think that's a tribute to our award-winning financial staff, budget officer, and our town board, who's been conservative fiscally. And some of the highlights that I just wanted to talk about with the credit strengths, really is the strong finances that we've had for these last 6 years, and under the prior administration of Larry Cantwell. Favorable and desirable location, can't change that, although sometimes I think maybe we'd like it to be a little less favorable and desirable come August. The rating outlook, stable outlook, reflects our view that the town's financial position will remain strong due to its conservative budgeting, proactive financial management practices. We also expect that the economy will remain very strong and continue to experience steady growth. The financial operations are due to strong finances, healthy reserves. East Hampton finances will remain strong as management continues to budget conservatively. In 2022, the town's available fund balance and net current assets increased to just under $86 million, or 52.6% of total revenues. While inflation was driving up costs, management's conservative budgeting has prevented this from being a material issue of the town's operations that have been stable for many years, aided by strong revenue streams. Management has budgeted very cautiously for all revenue streams, and as a result, routinely outperforms budget. So again, thanks to all of you and our financial staff for making that happen. And the reason that's important is that as we go into the bond sale, we will get the lowest possible rate for the sale of those bonds, which means that while the total indebtedness we've been bringing down over time, when we do borrow or roll those bond anticipation notes into long-term financing, that we get the lowest rate, and that means savings to the taxpayers, and that we borrow to improve infrastructure, to replace vehicles and equipment, to upgrade the software, and improve infrastructure around town, and that's crucial to an efficient town and to be able to provide services that are necessary. Speaking of budget, the budget meetings with each department will be kicking off tomorrow. I'll be meeting with every single department head, agency within the town to discuss the proposed budget for 2024. We have a tentative schedule for budget meetings that'll go through the 10th of August. The budget will be due. The supervisor's preliminary budget's due to the clerk on September 29th. Tentatively, we're scheduling the first work session presentation for October 3rd, October 10th, and if needed, October 17th. Notice the public hearing on the 19th of October. Notice published in the paper on the 26th. And we'll conduct that public hearing on November 2nd with the adoption of the budget on November 16th. That's our tentative schedule at this point. CSEA and PBA bargaining unit negotiations will continue in earnest through this month and beyond, likely. I wanted to bring folks up to date on the Feeney Army Corps of Engineers project for downtown Montauk. The town has supplied all the necessary access authorizations and deeds. The bids were open on the 18th of July, I believe it was. And they came back lower than estimated by the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of Engineers is expected to award the Fire Island and Montauk bids by the end of this week. So we'll keep you apprised of any further developments there. But that could result in sand being placed on the beach in downtown Montauk as early as this fall, winter of 23-24. The Boys and Girls Harbor Pavilion has been ordered. The comfort station's in the process of being ordered. Our initial bid for the comfort station was quite high. We've gone back and looked at town of Brookhaven has a town bid we can do on contract, and so we're looking at Island Structures, I believe, is the provider, or not Island Structures, excuse me,
Concrete.
Island Concrete. So we'll be looking at that. There are a couple different models to choose from, and we have, to meet ADA requirements, a certain number of stalls that you have to provide to meet that. And the estimated completion is early November.
I believe the multi-user path should be.
That has been graded. They're putting down base material. We are waiting on the final asphalt. That may not actually get finished until spring. It depends on how quickly we can get the utilities. There's water lines and electric that need to be brought up the roadway. So we wanted to wait until after that's done and the heavy equipment, concrete trucks necessary. Want to wait till after that's done before we go putting the final coat pavement on. And I think that's all I have.
Great, all good news.
So we have a few resolutions to do, and then I think we have exec session items to discuss.
I'd like to offer resolution 2023-1056. This is to appoint seasonal lifeguards for August 2023. This will go from August 1st, 2023 to September 16th, 2023 for Benjamin Selby and Barnaby Friedman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
1057 is appoint laborer in the Highway Department, Jeremy Kazma, hourly rate of $22.10, grade 15, starting step, effective August 7th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
1058 is appoint student intern 1 to aquaculture for Max Higgins. Actually, we have a student intern 1 and student intern 2 on here. So,
conflicting title.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me.
1650 may be the one.
Okay, so let me go student intern 1. So we can actually change the second one to student intern 1 in the second line there. Hourly rate of $16.50, effective August 1st, 2023.
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried.
Thank you. 1059 is a title changes for lifeguards for August 2023 for Ethan McCormick, Justin Schaffer, and Mason Barris.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried.
1060 is a change of hourly rate for senior lifeguard Lily Mongan. She'll now be paid $18.75, retroactive to June 2nd through September 16th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried.
1061, and this is the Rosenberry and Vogel. This is the amend the authorized acquisition and amend the 2023 management and stewardship plan. This is for the property at 12 Faith Street in Montauk, tax map 300-28-5-23.2, whereas revealed through the title search that a Sally Vogel is 1/6 owner of the property. We're to add Sally Vogel as an additional purported owner.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried.
As discussed earlier, 1062 is a change order number 1 for second house remediation. This is going to go to Arco Environmental Services Corporation. The change order was for $4,521.93 to cover the unexpected costs related to the cesspool remediation for a total cost of $16,421.43.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass carried.
1063 is accept donation of a memorial bench, a gift from Rachel Antel in the memory of her mother, Diane Antel, to be placed in Mason Park Beach off of Mason Road overlooking the water.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass carried.
I have 1064, which is to reclassify and promote Devlin Webb to airport maintenance mechanic. And this is where the Devlin Webb's maintenance mechanic 2 position in the East Hampton Airport, and a result that the review has been determined and the duties of position are to be reclassified to the title of airport maintenance mechanic. Resolved, Devlin Webb is appointed to the full-time position of airport maintenance mechanic at an hourly rate of $28.48, grade 20 off step, which is $59,241.52 annually, retroactive to July 12th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried.
I have 1065, which is a change in hours for senior justice court clerks. This is where Justices Rana and Tukulski have requested an increase in the weekly schedule hours for full-time senior court clerks. So be it resolved that Jennifer Annison and Nicole Shipman will be scheduled for 20 hours per week with no change in hourly rate, retroactive to July 30th, 2023.
Second.
40 hours, but yes.
That's 40 hours. Thanks.
All, do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. 1065 is a change in hours, senior justice court clerks, resolved to,
1066. Down here.
I'm
did that
sorry, I
once.
did that one. Yeah. I was just saw my name and then the next one down under it. Okay, yes, so I'm sorry. Payout for Dwayne Denton, that's 1066. And resolve that the finance department authorized check, the issue payroll appropriate in the amount $226 for sick and personal time, $6.45 for compensatory time, $460.42 in prorated longevity, $121.88 in prorated cleaning and clothing allowance, less $401.25 for overuse of vacation time for gross total payout of $414.29 payable to the state of Dwayne Denton, Executor Susan Denton as final payout.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
He's missed. He's a nice man.
Yes, absolutely.
He was a great addition to our town staff here for some time. 1067 is a payout upon retirement for Gregory Schaefer. And this is for $25,231.15 in vacation time, $129,760.20, sick time, $4,541.61 in personal time, and a total of $8,650.68 in holiday time, plus $3,558.29 in night differential, $554.16 in prorated clothing town's allowance for a gross total of $172,296.09.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass carried.
I
1060.
just want to thank Lieutenant Schaefer for his years of service. He served the town for 29 years. Did a beautiful walkout ceremony on Friday with bagpipes, of course. And, we wish Greg and his family, much joy in his retirement.
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you, Kathy. 1068 is to retain outside counsel Daniel Cohen, 2023. Retain Daniel Cohen and the Cohen Law Group to negotiate cable franchise renewal agreement with Altice USA. And that is for $12,900.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass carried. 1069 is to authorize expenditure of the 375th anniversary commemorative coins. And that is at an amount of $1,150 KB emblem.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Are there any other matters to bring before the board? Or is it additional resolutions? Entertain a motion.
To make a motion to go into exec session to discuss CPF water quality and license agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. What time would you like to reconvene? Shall we have lunch?
Please.
2 o'clock.
Sounds good.
All right, very good. I'll send out a link. Stay safe, be